Hey everybody, welcome to today's workshop. I am super excited to share this introduction to whole food plant-based nutrition with you today. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about and really excited to just give you a good foundation of how to look at nutrition from a whole new light, one that's very common sense. It will resonate with you, and I think you'll experience some clarity and some aha moments as we go through and take a look at the science with whole food plant-based nutrition. So I want to know if you've ever thought any of these things. Why is it so hard to maintain a healthy weight? Why is nutrition information out there and all the different diets so confusing? Why is health information so contradictory? It seems like you can't get one straight answer. And what about family stuff and genetics and health? Why has everyone in my family all had this same disease? Maybe in your family it's been cancer. In my family, it's heart disease. In other families, it's diabetes. And the biggest question I think that bothers us with this is, am I slated? Am I destined for the same disease that I've seen my entire family struggle with? Those are the questions that I've asked myself before, and I want you to know that I've been down this road and I've learned a lot, and I'm really excited to share with you some of the answers to these questions. So the first thing that we have to realize is the fact of the matter is that we live in a food environment and an information environment too, really, that is not really helping us. It's creating a lot of conflicts of interest, a lot of confusion. So, for example, you've got the food environment, just the food around us and food choices. You can even think about, maybe not now, but maybe in the past, was there ever a time that you pretty much just made the food choices that you wanted to make just based on if they tasted good and if they were cost effective and convenient? Honestly, I think most Americans make their food choices based on those three things. Now, hopefully it's changing. Hopefully we're becoming more self-aware and more informed and making healthier choices, but really this is where most of us start. So a big influencer in this, of course, is the food industry. It's their job to make money. It's their job to make food as addicting and delicious and amazing as possible so that we will keep buying it. And part of that, not only the food engineering, but part of that is the marketing. They are presenting all of these products in the most appealing way. They're teaching us and feeding us information that helps us feel better about our choices, like really touting, well, this is high in fiber, or this is high in protein, or this is reinforced with all these vitamins and minerals. These are the things that we want to hear because we want to feel good about the choices we're making. And the food industry is very good at doing that for us. And then, of course, this is a big one, right? Just where are we getting our nutrition information? The fact of the matter is that most of us are getting it from sources that have an inherent conflict of interest. A lot of what we think we know about nutrition has actually just come from the food industry and their marketing. The other big portion of where most of us get nutrition information is from the dietary guidelines set out by the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture. And let me just pull this curtain back for a minute and say that the USDA has an inherent conflict of interest because they have two jobs. One, to create the dietary guidelines, but number two is to support the food industry. Okay, so why would we take information from people that are simply telling us what to buy based on who they want us to buy from? They want to support the food industry in the United States, which is great. That's fantastic. But they shouldn't be the ones telling us then what the healthful way is to eat, right? I would love to see someday our dietary guideline coming from the National Institute of Health, maybe. So there is a lot of conflict of interest inherently in our world. So you can see that, of course, if we're just going to go with the flow here, we're probably headed nowhere good. And I'm going to show you exactly how not good it can be. But the good news is here that if we get the right information in our hands, we can turn things around. Let me show you what I mean. So if you just took a look at the top 10 causes of death in the United States, you might be surprised to learn that, first of all, number one is heart disease. Did you know that that is our number one killer? Number 2 is cancer, and these numbers are a little dated at this point. Hopefully we'll get updated numbers coming out soon, but from what I've heard and looked at, the numbers for diabetes are quickly climbing to become the number 3rd cause of death very, very soon. Now, I'm going to show you something pretty amazing, that actually 6 of the top 10 killers in America have a very strong link to nutrition. And we are going to really dive into this today. And I'm going to show you exactly what we know about a few of these diseases and how it interacts with nutrition. Now, this is good news and it's bad news. The bad news is it seems like we're kind of doing this to ourselves, isn't it? And the good news is if we're doing it to ourselves, we can turn this around, okay? I'm going to show you a little bit more of what I mean. So I'm not the only one that gets excited about this. The World Health Organization, they have again and again published and said that we know what the major causes of chronic disease are, okay? Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, these are considered chronic diseases, meaning we can't cure them. It's something that you will have long term. So the fact of the matter is that we know that unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, and tobacco use are the causes of chronic disease, okay? Now, the good news, this gets me out of bed in the morning. We have the potential, if we controlled for those 3 risk factors, we could turn around, we could prevent 80% of heart disease, stroke, and diabetes cases. That is huge. Okay, that number is insane. And it's extremely hopeful and inspiring to me, which is a big part of why I do what I do as a health coach. And then 40% of cancer cases could have been prevented if we had nutrition figured out, exercise figured out, and no tobacco going on. Okay, this is huge. Okay, I don't know that most of us realize that we really do have this much power over our health outcomes as a whole and as a nation. So it's good news. We do have a say in our health outcomes. If you've wondered if you have to go on to die of a heart attack, just like your dad or your grandpa or whomever, or whatever disease it is in your family, I'm here to tell you that you have more control over your health outcomes than you might have ever believed before, which is wonderful news. So I would just love to share with you just real quick a little bit of my story and how I kind of asked these questions and started making some shifts. This is my family. I've got 4 little kids and an amazing husband that has gone on this whole journey with me. Back when we got married in 2007, we were still very much steeped in the American diet, the pizza, the hamburgers, the processed food, snacky stuff, all of it. And that was fine and normal. Like, we weren't like really struggling with anything at the time, so we didn't really have a reason to change, and we thought we were doing okay. And then in 2015, it was a very simple little trigger, but it was my kids burning through snack food, and it just drove me nuts. That I could walk out of Costco and have bought a giant bag of Goldfish, a giant bag of pretzels, and a giant package of fruit snacks, for it to only be gone in like a matter of 2 weeks, where I'm walking out spending hundreds of dollars on snack food thinking that, oh, this is going to last me a month. So that was just kind of a little trigger that led me to start learning more about food. And so I kind of transitioned my family to a whole foods, clean eating sort of way back in 2015. And that went on for about a year and a half. And I got to say, we didn't really feel any amazing changes. Like, the only things that we really noticed was definitely that we could feel fuller faster for longer because we were eating more whole foods. We definitely started eating more fruits and vegetables, but we were still eating a lot of meat and a lot of dairy and a lot of eggs, which we thought was normal and healthy and fine. But we really didn't notice any like earth-shattering changes in the way we felt day to day, other than I do think I kicked my sugar addiction a little bit in that journey. Now, in 2017 and leading up to 2017, I started doing even more research, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole of the Netflix food documentaries that are out there, and I discovered a couple that really changed the way I understood the way I looked at food, even to another level. And those films were Forks Over Knives and Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Kind of funny titles, I know, but I've got a resource guide for you that you'll get with this workshop that has all sorts of documentaries, books, podcasts, all sorts of places you could go to learn more about this as well. But for me, that's where my journey started. And then it just opened this floodgate of questions and exploration and research that my husband and I really felt strongly that going to a more whole food, plant-based way of eating was exactly what our family needed. There's way too many stories for me to share with you in this workshop, but let me just say that it has been an amazing journey, and we have really gotten nothing but good out of this change. And it was such a dramatic improvement in so many ways from going on along on this journey. So what was interesting to me is once I transitioned my family, it was January of 2017. It only took about 8 months before God tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Danielle, I didn't give you this experience for you to keep it to yourself. You're supposed to help other people with this." And that's where I've kind of been led on this path to educate myself and certify myself in plant-based nutrition as well as health and wellness coaching. So now I have the tools to really help people make lasting lifestyle changes rooted in plant-based nutrition, which is just such a joy for me. And this is what I love to do now. So in today's workshop, I really want to give you the tools that you need to start taking control of your health with whole food plant-based nutrition. Okay, so we're going to do that, number one, by just understanding that connection between health and nutrition and those behaviors of what we're choosing to put in our mouth. Number two, we're going to take a look at kind of compare and contrast the standard American diet with this whole food plant-based way of eating and what that might look like if you started to create some healthier habits around those new types of foods. And then we're going to talk about kind of what you can expect. What are the benefits you're going to get out of this? What are you going to notice right away if you start to go more this way of eating? My husband, he put it that he used to be addicted to kind of those standard American foods, but now he's addicted to how he feels when he eats these whole food plant-based foods. So that's my hope for you, is I want to get you hooked on feeling amazing. And I really do think that you will notice some differences as you start to apply the things that you're going to learn in this workshop. Okay, so first let's take a look at this. What is the connection between our health outcomes and our nutrition? I showed you this already. You can kind of see that most of the things that kill us are linked to the nutrition. So what kind of nutrition do we need to turn these things around? Let's start by looking at our number one killer, which is heart disease. Heart disease is completely preventable. Okay, as this gentleman, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, would say, he calls it a foodborne illness. I know that's a little bit of a leap in understanding, but I'm going to show you why we say that. He took a group of men and women that had terrible, terrible heart disease and put them on a whole food plant-based eating plan. And he tracked their results. And this is one example of one of those patients where just after 32 months on a plant-based diet, they were able to reverse their heart disease. So what you're looking at with this black and white picture over here is a diseased artery there on the left where it's inflamed and it's cankered with plaque, and you can see how restricted that blood flow is in that bracketed area. But then after those 32 months of simply just changing what the patient was eating, look how healthy and vibrant that artery is now. It's amazing. When I first learned about this, this is actually featured, this study is actually featured in the film Forks Over Knives. And when I first learned this, it just blew me away that we have a say in this. And of course, as you know, heart disease is what runs in my family. So this really got my attention. What's exciting is that Dr. Esselstyn was not the only one that has been able to reverse heart disease with whole food plant-based nutrition. There's another man named Dr. Ornish who did a very similar study and had the same results. And what I want to share with you here is the fact that the amount of change that you make will determine the amount of benefit you get. We like to say it's dose dependent, okay? So here on this table, you can see that the more adherent the patients were to this new way of eating, the more reversal in their heart disease that they had. And if they had kind of medium adherence, they got medium results, but we're still reversing this disease, you guys. This is huge. And then even if you just adhere a little bit to this plan, they saw still some improvement in the heart disease. So this is such good news for those of us that are not ready by any means. And I do not recommend that you just go home and jump into this 100%. This is something you can take a step at a time and build upon and build up to the most adherence that you can create in your life, and then you can enjoy the most benefits from it. Now let's switch gears to diabetes for a moment. This is Dr. Neal Barnard, and he has used whole food plant-based nutrition to reverse type 2 diabetes. Yep, that dreaded disease that completely ruins your life, it can totally be reversed with diet. It's amazing. And so what we see with this is when we take type 2 diabetics and put them on a whole food plant-based eating plan, their A1C levels drop, they lose weight, and they're able to reduce or even eliminate their need for insulin. This is pretty exciting. There's been many studies done on this, but here is one example where they took 25 type 1 diabetics and 25 type 2 diabetics. Now, the type 1 diabetics, of course, have some more things working against them with type 1 diabetes, but even though they weren't able to completely reverse the disease, they were able to lower their insulin requirements by 40%, and the cholesterol dropped as well. So, wow, how much money are those type 1 diabetics going to save on medications every month just by improving the way that they're eating? It's amazing the power that nutrition can have. But take a look at these type 2 diabetics. All of them but one were able to completely get rid of their need for insulin. Isn't that amazing? Eating this way actually cleaned up their system to the point that their body was sensitive to their own insulin again, that they didn't need extra anymore. They didn't have that insulin resistance that comes along with diabetes. All right, so what exactly is this whole food plant-based thing, and what else is it capable of? Well, to be completely honest, there is a laundry list of things that this way of eating can impact, but most dramatically and most, how do I say, it's very well established in the medical literature that we can prevent, treat, and even reverse heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. Like, it's almost predictable that it will have an impact, okay? This way of eating has also been shown to be extremely anti-inflammatory. So if you are dealing with any aches and pains, if you are trying to heal from a surgery or from an injury, if you are struggling with any sort of joint pain or arthritis, this way of eating has been shown to be extremely beneficial for that. It's also been shown to be a very effective weight loss tool. And this way of eating is naturally low in saturated fat, it's completely free of cholesterol, and it's rich in fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. So basically, we're just looking at a really healthy way of eating that has been shown to prevent and reverse our most common ailments and diseases. So why not take a deeper look at this, right? Now, why plant-based? Why are animal products not healthful, right? We thought, isn't chicken good for us? Isn't that protein good? Eggs, fish, that's good for us, right? Cheese. There's all sorts of things around these food products that make us believe that it is healthful. But let me teach you a little bit that the fact of the matter is that as humans, we create all the cholesterol we need in our body, and we are not designed to consume it. But when we eat a diet that is high in animal-based products, we will get more cholesterol than we need, and many of us can get way out of control and lead to other problems, of course. Animal-based diets are highly linked with diabetes and heart disease. It's also linked with osteoporosis. And honestly, again, this could be a laundry list. These are just the highlights. One of the biggest things that got my attention when I started learning about animal products is that they inherently have certain compounds that are cancer promoting and tumor growing. IGF-1, estrogen, casein is another one that's not listed here. These are things that are naturally in these foods that are not designed for human consumption. Like, just as you look at the science, that's just really the conclusion that you can come to. And what we're seeing is animal-based diets are extremely inflammatory and acidic. So feel free to do more research on this. Here's a couple of citations for you here. There is some really amazing evidence showing that really the direction of the standard American diet is not where we want to go. Let me show you a little bit of the nutrition numbers behind this. If you took kind of a conglomerate of all the plant-based foods out there and kind of averaged them together, that's what these numbers are that you're looking in this green column. And same thing, if we just kind of bunch together and average out all of the nutrition information and just kind of get an aggregate number for our animal-based foods, that's what we're looking at in this reddish-orange column. So I'm not going to go through every single little thing here, but you can see that cholesterol and fat, the things we probably don't want very much of, are very low in the plant-based kingdom and very high in the animal-based kingdom. Protein, we all worry so much about protein. There's a lot of hype around protein, but guess what? You can get just enough protein on a plant-based diet, same as on an animal-based diet. Okay, good news, right? So you don't need to worry about that. Dietary fiber. Let's talk about fiber for a minute. Fiber, by definition, is only in plants. There is no fiber in an egg or in a slice of cheese or in cow's milk. Fiber, by definition, is that framework. It's the bulk. It's the stuff that makes up a plant that our body doesn't even break down and digest. It just moves through us, but our body needs it. That is part of human health, is having a diet that is high in fiber. And we can find plenty of that in the plant-based world. And then check out all these vitamins and minerals. These are the things that we want lots of. These are the protective antioxidants that we want lots of. And they are so rich and plentiful in the plant kingdom. And really, the only reason they are even found in animal-based foods is because the animals are eating the plants. So we could just skip over the middleman and go to the root of the food chain and really get all the benefit from those amazing plants. So aside from animal-based foods, there's a whole other category of foods I want you to be aware of, and I call those processed foods. When I say processed foods, I'm talking about anything that started out as a plant, but has been stripped down and added to the point that it's really not even a natural food anymore. Even oils are, even though they're plant-based, they're highly processed, right? You're taking an olive and you're stripping away all of its parts until you just have the fat, right? All whole foods in nature have 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrate, and fat. And it also has other things like fiber and water and all these vitamins and minerals we were talking about just a minute ago. So when you take that olive and you turn it into olive oil, you are stripping away everything except for the fat. So do you see how processed that is and how unnatural that is? Our bodies are not designed to process and to receive that type of food in that form. That's why processed foods are really problematic. So we're talking about oils, sugars, and highly refined flours. And we're talking about just these packaged foods really as well that have just been so designed and engineered to the point that there is no fiber, there's no natural vitamins and minerals. It's all been stripped away, and then any vitamins and minerals that does have has been added back in synthetically. Okay, and then we also get lots of additives like more salt and more oil and more sugar to make it more addictive. And really, we're just walking away with a very empty, calorie-dense food that does not have anything really worth consuming other than just energy to burn. But that's it. It's not really supporting us. So the sad thing about this is that most of us eat this way. This is what we would call the standard American diet, which is quite fitting that that spells sad. And about 55% of calories consumed by Americans is made up of processed foods. So that's what we were just talking about, kind of these colorfully packaged foods, prepared foods, okay? Animal products, that could be your hamburgers and your hot dogs, but that's also your chicken and your steak and your fish and the dairy, all sorts of those animal products there. Vegetables, fruits, nuts, and beans are represented here by this 11%. And what's sad actually about these numbers is these are straight from a report that the USDA put out a few years ago. And they included ketchup and French fries in that vegetable consumption. So you could probably make that little 11% even smaller than it is, which is pretty sad. And then we've got our little 4% sliver of whole grains. You can see that if what we know to be true about processed foods and animal products is that it's not healthful, and if it's true that plants are healthful, is it really any surprise that we are all dying of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes? Not really. So if you look at the standard American diet, you could break it down and really make these summations. The standard American diet is high in fat, very low in fiber, high in animal protein, inflammatory, it's addicting, it's disease promoting, and it causes us to gain weight. So if we just wanted to flip that on its head, that would pretty much give us a whole food, plant-based diet. It's really the antithesis of the standard American diet. It is low in fat naturally. It's high in fiber. It's based in plant protein, which is healthful and not harmful. And it's anti-inflammatory. It happens to be very satiating. And we know, like I was showing you earlier, that it can reverse disease, and we know that it can also help us lose weight without feeling hungry or having to count calories. It's pretty amazing stuff. So if you're on board with this, if you're thinking, okay, this makes sense to me, that's pretty exciting and pretty amazing that we have seen how powerful this change can be just in those that are struggling with different diseases. How do I apply this? What does this look like? What am I eating? What am I not eating? What's next? Well, let me break it down this way. This is basically the food groups that you'd be looking at if you decided to go to a more whole food, plant-based way of eating. Now, if it were me, I would add a fifth food group here, and it would just be a small serving of nuts and seeds on the side. But you can see we've got fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. Okay, and I love this statement. This is straight out of Forks Over Knives. We're basically just talking about a diet that is centered on whole, unrefined, or minimally refined plant foods. We're basing it on these 4 or 5 food groups, and we are excluding or minimizing our meat, dairy, and eggs, as well as any highly refined foods like the bleached flour, the refined sugar, and the oil. Okay, so that's the long and the short of it. So what would that look like? Well, here's kind of a little bit of what we're talking about. Animal-based foods versus plant-based foods. That's really kind of the first question you're going to ask when you're sitting down to a meal or you're ordering from a restaurant. You're going to ask yourself, is this plant-based or is it animal-based? And then you also want to be looking at that cross-section of, is this a whole food or is it a processed food? Those are kind of the 2 questions you want to be asking yourself. And really, I love this little idea of thinking of green, yellow, and red light foods. I'm not a big fan of like labeling certain foods as bad or good, but this just kind of gives you a guideline of, well, I mostly want to be eating green light, and once in a while, I might have some yellow, about as often as I would run a yellow light when I'm driving. And on those red light foods, I'm going to really be thinking twice and thinking seriously about the choice I'm making when I'm choosing to run a red light, right? Same thing when we're thinking about consuming these foods. So this is kind of the ideal breakdown of what we want to be including and minimizing in the way that we're eating. So what would this look like in a day? This is a pretty good representation of what a day looks like for me, although these are not pictures of my actual food. These are much more beautiful than what I can produce, especially with my camera. But to just give you an idea, I start my day with a big bowl of oatmeal. Okay, so we've got oats, that's a whole grain, right? And we've got our berries, and you could throw some nuts in there. You could throw some herbs and spices in there. And then I snack throughout the day on hummus and whole grain, oil-free crackers, or hummus and vegetables. I love having a big smoothie each day. And of course, me and my kids, we snack on fruit all day long in between meals. One of my favorite lunches is to just make myself a really simple but really hearty and delicious taco salad. And you can see how easy that could be to throw together. As long as I've got some cooked rice and some cooked beans in my fridge and a jar of salsa, and if I've got my greens and any other veggies I want to add to it, that is a really simple way to start eating whole food plant-based. Okay. And then dinner can really be a huge variety of things. And if you've hung out with me for any length of time, you know that I have a recipe book that I actually share all of the go-to 4 weeks worth of go-to dinners that I make for my family. But one great example is, say, like a vegetable stir fry served over a bed of brown rice or quinoa. This is a really simple way. We've got our grain, we've got our vegetables, right? We've been eating our fruit throughout the day. We've got some beans going on here. You can see there's some chickpeas in that. Oh, maybe those are cashews. I put chickpeas in my stir fry all the time. We've got our beans in our taco salad. We've got beans from the hummus. So you can see how this kind of just filters out throughout the day. Now, can you have sweet treats eating this way? Absolutely. One of my favorite things to make is a chocolate banana ice cream, which is basically just a smoothie, but I freeze my bananas and I mix it with a little bit of almond butter and some cocoa powder, and it creates this amazing soft serve chocolate ice cream that me and my family love. And it's all made from whole foods. Notice that I didn't say that I sweetened it with anything. No, it's just those ripe, sweet bananas, and then I get that cocoa flavoring in there. I get some richness with the almond butter, and we've got a really delicious treat. So this is just an example of what this could look like. I hope you're starting to see where those 4 or 5 food groups can kind of fit into this. And I do have so much more that I could share with you. So please, this is a great opportunity to start writing down questions if you haven't already been doing so. If you have questions of what this might look like, then reach out to me and we can definitely dive into that together. But this should give you a pretty good idea of what the day-to-day could be. So if you're going to get started by eating this way, here's some suggestions for you. Number one, take it a meal at a time. One of the easiest way to start transitioning into this way of eating is to just say, okay, I'm going to figure out whole food plant-based breakfast for now, and leave everything exactly as it is. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying to overhaul everything all at once. Just start with breakfast. And there's so many options, right? I showed you one of my favorites is oatmeal, but other people enjoy breakfast smoothies, or they enjoy, some people really like having a big bed of steamed kale or spinach along with some potatoes. Potatoes are totally awesome and good in a plant-based lifestyle, right? So there's lots of options there. Number two, I want you to think about what are the simple shifts and substitutions that you could make from what you're already doing. What's just one little step that could turn it into a more whole food and a more plant-based food? So an example of this is taking a look at the different recipes you have, and anything that uses ground beef, maybe swap it out for lentils or black beans. Anything that uses chicken, maybe you could throw some chickpea garbanzo beans or mushrooms into your stir fries or your soups instead of the chicken. There's little shifts that we can make like that, and you're not going to be overhauling all of the rest of that meal that you and your family are already used to. I have some really powerful follow-up videos on this. So if you want more guidance on how to dig into this, be sure to get in touch with me and I will make sure that you have what you need there. One of the best tips that I can give people as they start eating this way is to not just think about eating fruits and vegetables all day long every day. We do want to include the whole grains and the beans, and yes, even those potatoes. And the thing about starches is that those are naturally slightly higher in calories than fruits and vegetables, but not nearly as high as what our animal products and our processed foods are at. And starch is naturally satiating for humans. So we want to look to those starches. So with each meal, do you have some sort of bean? Do you have some sort of grain involved in that meal? Okay. A fourth tip for you is please don't look at this as a diet that you are going to go on for your benefit. I would love for you to look at this as an opportunity to improve the nutrition for your entire family. And as you transition to a more plant-based breakfast or plant-based wherever you're going to start, do it for your family as well. You can share with them and talk with them about what you're learning, and you can teach them. Okay. And again, I have lots of resources to help you with that. So let me know if you need more support there. Excuse me. Okay, my final tip for getting started on this is find local support and or some support online, okay? So for example, when I started eating this way, it wasn't much longer until I started my own potluck group. And so we meet every single month and we bring whole food plant-based dishes to share with each other. And we love swapping recipes and seeing what really is possible with this way of eating. And it is so exciting. There's also a host of online groups that you could join. I have one of my own, which you're probably already a member of, to really see what this lifestyle looks like in action. So find support. This is definitely going upstream to the mainstream, right? So you are going to need to enlist some support around you. So what can you expect as you start to make those changes? Really, so much. My husband and I have experienced most of these. We really felt like we had more energy as we started to eat more plant-based foods. We didn't feel heavy after a meal. I feel like this helped me go to even another level of beating my sugar addiction, getting to the point that I could have a pretty stable mood and I wasn't on this yo-yo of, eating something really sugary and then going on this crash and then having something else because, to try to recover from it. I'm not doing that anymore. And it's so freeing to not have that. Pain management, I've seen this help my mom a lot. She had carpal tunnel and her hands went from looking like the Michelin man down to normal human hands in just a matter of a week. And the only things that she changed were to stop drinking cow's milk and eating yogurt. And she did cut out meat entirely. And that was it. And the inflammation just melted away. And she's not the only one that I've seen that happen with. Lots of things here, okay? So most of all, though, you are really going to be reducing your risk of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. And if you are dealing with any of those symptoms already, this is definitely going to change things. So I should say right now, if you are ready to step into this, I highly recommend that you go and get on the same page with your doctor and say, hey, I'm looking into this of just going more organic and more whole food and more plant-based in my eating. And I would like your support monitoring my numbers and my medications, because I'm telling you right now, if you start eating this way, your need for those medications is going to go down because your body is going to start managing itself better because it has the nutrition that it needs. Okay. So much more here you can see. And like I said, I am a resource here. So first of all, I want you to start by doing your own research. I have a resource guide. This is one of the pages in my 4-week meal plan, and I do have this guide available on its own. So let me know if you don't have it yet. But this is really a great place to start. These are just a list of some of the really great resources you can go to, because here's the thing, I don't want you to just take my word for it. I really want you to learn these things for yourself, okay? Because you are going to be met with questions and you're gonna need to be able to answer those questions, okay? And I'm gonna be having more resources coming out of my own that I'm gonna be able to help you and support you more in that area. But for now, this is where we need to start, and you can continue to strengthen your own understanding of what this way of eating is, how to do it, and why you're doing it. All right, so please take that note page that you had and shoot me an email, okay? Reach out to me. If we're working together in coaching or if you're in my free private Facebook group, please let me know what questions you have. I would love to help you answer any remaining questions you have about the details, the ins and outs of the nutrition stuff, the practical stuff. How do you get started? Let me know what you're concerned about and what you're trying to figure out. and then really like boots on the ground, what does this look like? Yeah, you're going to be needing to change some habits, right? And you're going to need some support. So that's what I'm here for. That's what our community in our free private Facebook group is for. And this is something I'm going to continue to create resources around. So I'd love to hear from you. I would love to know what your questions are. So please reach out. And that's all I have for you today. So please let me know where else I can fill in the gaps, and just kind of let this sink in a little bit too, because I know it is a big change of what we used to think about nutrition. So I'm excited to see where this leads you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.